Hi.
We are already live. Welcome everyone to Modwain Aileron's House of Fun. Today we're going to talk about something really close to my heart. Can you ever be really offensive? Is that a problem? And should we stop people from being offensive? Now the other way to approach this would be, can we say that you shouldn't be offensive and that you should do what you say and political correct and all that? So let's go with the flow. Today
I love that Rin is there as well. It's great.
Yeah. She came in just before I went live. Really cool. So yeah, welcome Rin, obviously.
I'm so happy to be here. Thank you guys. You're awesome.
One moment. I'll have to. Sorry, I lost my train of thoughts for a second. But today we're going to talk about whether it's okay to be offensive, yes or no. What do you think?
Well, it seems also to start. It seems that offense now has become a. To me, it feels now become a way to. This is being cliche, to silence discourse, and to shut down. Basically, it's a vindictive weapon. Because
the accusation of it, right? Accusation of offense.
And the problem is it's meaningless, so you can just throw it out there and then people don't even know what you're talking about, if you know what I mean.
No, but that's the funny thing about people silencing other people because things are offensive. But what does it actually mean that something is offensive?
It's a good point.
The problem is different people will be offended by different things. Sure, I think that like if you are like working at a bank, you should be polite. Or if you're doing a customer service job, you should be polite. Exactly. Because you're getting paid to be polite. That's part of your job. However, different people will be offended by different things. Like, you know, something that says, I love Jesus could offend a militant atheist.
No, it doesn't.
Yeah. Look, if you go into a church, right? You go like, would you go into a church and say God is dead? Would you go into a church and say it? So I think it's always the context, you know. Of course, in the church you wouldn't say God is dead. Yeah, that'd be super offensive, and it wouldn't be the right place to say it. You may be right or wrong about it, but
let's go with that one. So let's go with that example. Let's go with that example. You go into the church and you say God is dead. Okay. Now, if you're disturbing a sermon, I would say the problem is that you're disturbing a sermon.
Yeah. Well, of course, if you say if there's nobody there, then that's okay. I meant if there's people attending a service, right? And then you just say God is dead.
There could be people sitting there and I don't know, praying or something. But if there isn't a sermon at the time, who cares that you say God is dead? I mean, what's offensive about it?
Well, it's the context, right? It's obviously offensive to the people who attend the service and believe in God, and so it's offensive to them. So you wouldn't say it, right? But the thing is that I think the problem is that offensiveness being turned into a weapon is something where the context is ignored. So it's they just say this is objectively offensive, no matter who you say it to, no matter when you say it, no matter how you say it, and because they assume, I don't know what they assume, but they assume you are offending my liberal sensitivities. Let's say when I say white lives matter, okay, I say white lives matter. Oh, that's offensive. Okay, why is it offensive? So what people don't say is it's offensive to me and my worldview, and I extrapolate that me and my worldview is everybody's worldview. You know, I have. You know, I'm into Black Lives Matter, and I think everybody is into Black Lives Matter. So if you throw it back and say, well, your context, mate, I'm in a public place. I'm on Twitter. I'm on a public forum. Everybody uses it. There is no context here. You know?
Yeah. But can you truly be objectively offensive?
No, there's like I said, there's context, so it's subjective, obviously within a context, within like where you are, which group of people you talk to.
Yeah, I would say what you talk about so far is just manners.
There used to be a saying that sticks and stones can break my bones, but words can never hurt.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
I
where
was raised like that at school, in fact.
But were your parents? Did they say to you when you go to a policeman, you can call him an asshole?
No, that's different. That's not.
But that would be offensive, right? So there's context.
No. That wouldn't be offensive.
No,
that would be insulting, and there's a
Insulting,
difference between insulting and offensive.
Is
Well,
it? Explain.
I mean, I would imagine that you could are more likely to go to jail if you're disrespectful to the cops. From what I was always taught, my mom always tells me to be very respectful to the cops, to minimize the ability of going to jail, because if you're polite, the cops may just let you off with a warning instead of chilling you.
That's one reason. I hope she also told you that cops are also humans, and there's decency. So you wouldn't call just some stranger an asshole just because, I don't know, he crossed a red light. I mean, it's just politeness, to a point,
Which is what I was saying. It's just manners. It's like
manners. Yeah.
You have. It's not. It annoys me because there's people I'm in contact with who say, "Oh, they only want free speech so they can be rude about or racist or whatever." No, it's not that. Almost nobody fighting for free speech actually wants anyone to be racist. The point is, but if you are, you shouldn't go to jail for it.
Yeah.
And to
that's
be
a
honest,
fundamental difference.
And to be honest, like, look, I also was raised not to insult people, not to aim to insult people, be polite. But at the very same time, I was also told that, excuse me, at the very same time, I was also told by my parents that if someone is insulting me, calling me names or whatever, try to walk away. Don't take that offense. That person has a bad day or is an asshole or is a bad, raised child, whatever. If it's unclear, ask. But if it's clear that someone is calling you a name, try to walk away from it. Of course, it's not always working like that, but it's part of how society used to be. Like, you would be an asshole and people wouldn't try to shut you up. People just, at work or whatever, wouldn't talk to you.
Also,
it's de-escalation. But how do you not insult somebody on the internet? How do you avoid insulting anybody on the internet if you tweet something out to the public? How do you avoid insulting them? That's the big question, because there's always some idiot who thinks that you talk to them personally, even if you don't at them.
I was raised in times when we were reasonable. That's the thing.
Yeah. The problem is that the narcissist will always see some offense, and he will or some statement he will direct it at himself personally. So if you say white lives matter, then he will think that, oh, that means he's dissing me because I'm not white or something like that. So my life doesn't matter. A simple, just projected towards himself, the narcissist, the cluster B personality, who thinks that you say something about something general and then they take it personally.
But isn't it also the case of being raised to not be the center of the world? Like, okay, we obviously didn't have an internet, but my mother would explain me simply things like, it's fucking basic. Simply like, maybe it saddens you, but there are millions of people.
That the new generation, the millennials weren't raised with that. I think that's gone. That
not all, actually. There's again, not all millennials, obviously.
But there's another thing, and this is something that Crusader Soul is just typing, a moment ago typing in the chat. I try to be respectful, but never ever demand respect for myself. And I think that's the key. If you try to be respectful, then suddenly nothing becomes an issue anymore. Now, I can make jokes, which you can obviously find offensive, but you finding something offensive doesn't actually mean it is offensive.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you have to define. I know you're kind of saying it doesn't mean it's offensive. That's very true. But there are things. There is the thing or the concept of offensiveness, right? That's there. You know, you can say something offensive to a group of people within the context, and you can even do that when you're a comedian. Let's say you're a stand-up comedian, and say. Okay, I can't think of an example, but let's say you say I don't want to be offensive, so I don't really want to make up. An example. Can you give me an example for something that
like Chris Rock?
That is offensive. I'll show you something that is offensive
to a group of people.
To a group of people. Well, yeah, not to a group of people. One person.
But usually, you have maybe one person. Sorry, go on.
I'll share the screen. Here we go. A woman accuses bride and groom of being stingy for serving only cake and sandwich at their big day. She got offended because the someone's marriage, not her, someone's marriage, was not what she expected.
Well, so is the term stingy that she calls them stingy? Is that offensive to the bride and groom?
No, yeah, it is, because it's being cheap and Mr. Scrooge and so on. That's what stingy means. But she got offended for that. Seriously.
Oh, she got offended.
Yeah, she got offended because the marriage of the bride and groom was not up to her expectations. They only served cake and sandwiches. That is
okay. Well, that's like being offended at the world for not being what you expect it to be. You know, the world is not up to snuff, and the sunset hasn't quite the right tinge of pink. That's
exactly.
But can we really actually define what's offensive? And I don't think that's possible. Look.
It isn't. It's impossible.
The thing is that I looked at those fat acceptance video, yeah, just an example, and then one person will say that saying fat is offensive. The other person, also fat acceptance activist, will say obese is offensive, and I'm claiming the word fat back because it's not negative. It's blah 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 fucking blah. You don't know what to say anymore.
Yeah. Words. I mean, I don't know. I mean, it could be like if I called son, if I called you fat now, then that would be offensive. Well, it would be kind of offensive. You know, it would probably it wouldn't be true. But
no, but
if I called you fat,
it wouldn't be offensive
instead of, let's say, thick-boned or something like that. I don't know.
Yeah, but it doesn't matter. Because what you're basically saying is what I think proves the point which Carlos kind of made clear as well. Offense is the action of the offended, and the offended is quite often working from entitlement. How dare you call me fat? How dare you not give me cake? How dare you not have a barbecue at your wedding? Stuff like that. It's basically an entitlement thing.
It's not just entitlement, it's also an innate sense of superiority, because going back to the feudal system and aristocracy, you know, what you could say had very strict hierarchical structures. And how dare you say was what someone who was socially superior would say to someone they considered socially inferior.
It's about control, right? You control the speech of the other person.
But it's also
you set up the rules for. I set up the rules for what you can say.
Yeah.
In fact, offense in some countries and in some cultures, it can be deadly. The honor killings and so on. For very little, you can offend the family's notion of whatever, morals, anything, and they can kill. That used to be common, especially in not even. It used to be common in southern European countries like Portugal, Spain, Italy. The mafia were very offense-driven. They would kill
Steven Pinker wrote about this. If you read his book, Better Angels of Nature,
No, I haven't. I've got to read it. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, what it is basically on a culture, which is what you're talking about. That's what they call it, on a culture. Vendetta or feuds are based in societies without a strong rule of law. So as the rule of law comes in, that fades.
There's something worrying about it, though. I mean, we've now created a culture in the Western world where we, I don't know, self-censor because we are afraid someone might find what we say, think, or do offensive. But we don't know what someone will find offensive. Well, so that changes. This is the main reason. This is the main reason why the left is always eating itself, because sometimes they are behind each other, and the next time, oh no, but what you said now is offensive.
Yeah. This basically answers what San asked before. Can we define what offense is? Or no, because it's so personal.
I think it's, like I said, it's context. It can be a singular personal, but there's also this thing that you have a circle, a political circle. Let's say liberals, let's say Democrats, whatever. Let's say Black Lives Matter, Islam, whatever. You have this circle, and within this circle, it's very clear to people that you can't say certain things. That certain things are deemed offensive. Now, with the left eating itself, those circles get smaller and smaller. And the offensive words get widened and widened and widened, and the process of censoring or including more words into that pool of offensive word by them is regarded as enlightenment. So the more you find offenses, the more enlightened you are, until you can't say anything anymore.
But this is also, like you said, within the circle, certain things be said are clear to be offensive, but yet not for everyone.
Do you remember when we still had in Germany when we had Negroes?
Mm-hmm.
And then later on, it was you couldn't say Negroes anymore. Then we had black peoples.
Yeah.
But you couldn't say colored persons. That was very offensive. That
was we have colored.
Now we have persons of colors. You can't even call people black anymore.
No, we had colored persons for a while, and then it was black, and then and it's like, for goodness sake.
Weird.
It's starting in Poland. There is this trend on, I don't know, was it on Facebook? So within Polish people, a letter, you reminded me, a letter from a black boy or a black person. And it's starting like, dear white person, when I am born, I'm black. When I'm growing, I'm black. When I'm sick, I'm black. When I'm angry, I'm black. When I'm dying, I'm black. When you were born, you were pink. When you grew up, you're white. When you're sick, you yellow or green or something. And when you die, and when you die,
you turn purple.
You gray. Don't you dare to call me person of color. And I'm like, what the fuck?
Hold on, that's not just that is actually a song, and what he says that you got the fucking nerve to call me colored, and I got a point, and I think that was a good point. That was a good reminder to simply use the word black, and that's why I could not understand how they could renege and walk back and say now black is offensive. Suddenly the color black is not good enough anymore.
I was teaching at school. At school, at English lesson, I was taught to say Afro-American.
Oh, don't tell free of logic.
Nonsense in itself.
Yeah. In Portuguese, we have two words to describe the color black. It's preto and negro.
Negro.
And they are interchangeable.
Yeah.
Petro.
Preto. P-R-E-T-O.
And what's the difference, except for having two words?
I have absolutely no idea. Because you can call a person both names. You can call the color both names. But honestly, I don't know. I don't know. I call a car. The car is un carro preto, a black car, or un carro negro, which also means dirty.
Can you call a person un Pedro Negro?
Yes, it is, but it's like calling someone smart, intelligent.
I thought it was like a black Negro.
Yeah, it's just synonymous. They're
Okay,
synonyms.
guys.
I mean, we have trans blacks, so there should be white Negroes as well.
There is. It's
One
called.
second, though, because we've been talking a lot.
What's his name? Sean King. He's
Yeah.
like a white Negro.
Guys,
And-
we have been talking quite a bit. Let's see if because now we're talking about black people. We've talked.
Yeah, we went off. Thank you. I apologize.
No. I'm not saying we went off topic. We've been talking about what is offense, how is offense given, is offense given, when is offense given, if it is correct. I'm curious what our American friend has to say about this. Rin.
Oh yeah, I was thinking about this video. Well, he said it in a few videos. You all know who Temple is, I already assumed. And what he said in the videos, in disrespect to what I think Carlos was saying earlier, or it could have been Modwain, about about being offensive, and that is people should be allowed to feel hate. Hatred is a feeling. It's a negative feeling. It's a dirty feeling. But people should be allowed to feel hate. And when you say that people cannot say that they hate a group of people, then you're pretty much saying that people are not allowed to feel hate, which is it's a primary human emotion. It's something that you can't help.
Yeah, I don't even know. Would hate be offensive? Just saying it's a personal statement. Let's say, okay, I hate. I hate reggae music or reggae musicians or something like that. Would that be really offensive?
No, but that's the thing, because in countries like Britain, they talk about hate speech, and that is what they inextricably link to being offensive. So the people who want there to be this thing called hate speech are linking the two together until they're inseparable.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's like when people have a problem with hate, they have a problem. You say, I hate this group of people. And I do think that people should be able to honestly express themselves. I do think people should be able to honestly say that they hate this group, because to me, it would eliminate a lot of problems. Because right now, when the alt-rights goes to Twitter, the alt-rights is all like, all white people secretly hate black people. All white people just wants to get away from, black people. And I think they do it because they can't say what they really think, or they say, I hate this group, because if they do, then they would get suspended off Twitter. So as a loophole to getting suspended off Twitter, you just say, like, oh yeah, white people hate black people, because then Twitter doesn't know if you're an alt-right or intersectional feminist, because two groups of people say white people hate black people. It will be both the alt-rights and intersectional feminists. So if I do think that they say things like white people hate black people to stay in the safe side of Twitter source of service, and they're saying, it's how that they feel.
Can I ask a question? I don't think that the hate thing is so much offensive. I think it's when you state facts. And when you say like, oh, on average, let's say if you had said something like, oh, on average IQ points are lower, so on average black persons or persons of color on average have lower intelligence. That would be an offensive statement to me, rather than something like, oh, I don't like X. That doesn't really say anything. It just says something about me that I don't like. It doesn't really say anything. It just says something about my state. So it can't really be offensive. It's just like, can't change that. I don't like strawberry ice cream. That's not offensive, But if you say, hey, strawberry ice cream on average has more bacteria in it, that can, you know what I mean? So I think we shouldn't get stuck on this hate thing. I don't think that hate speech and offensiveness is necessarily are causally connected. Hate speech is more about bringing people to do violent actions, and that's what hate speech. The idea of hate speech is not so much a sparing offense as to avoid violence. That's what hate speech is about. But offense, that's on a completely different, on a much more, I don't know, a much more a less tangible kind of level. You know, it's much more, I don't know, offense. It's so. It's not as strong, I feel, as hate speech. You know, it's not as, you know, hate speech. You could say, oh, okay, let's shoot all these, let's shoot all X. You know, only a dead X is a good X. That's like hate speech. You know, but offense is more like, oh yeah, these people stink. You know, or whatever. You know, that's, you know, you say something about a person or a group of persons, and you say something bad about them.
No, but that's not even necessary.
It's not hate, like.
No, that's not necessary, because I mean the whole James Damore memo was everyone was saying, oh, he was being offensive, even though all he did was state scientific facts, and he was even against hiring.
That's the question. Here's the question: can facts be offensive? You will all say no, but if you say, go back to the church example. You go to church and says, well, there's no evidence, God doesn't exist, God is dead.
No, but they're two different.
But it's a fact, you know.
No, they're two different statements, because if you go in and say there's no evidence for God, that's a fact. If you go in and say God is dead, that's an opinion.
Yeah, indeed. How can you say God is dead? I mean,
yeah, of course.
You're transposing a fact.
I'm still alive. What the fuck are you guys talking about?
It's a figure of speech. It's a figure of speech.
No. But you with me? It's like
yes.
If you stick to facts and are scientific and are non-moralistic about it, you're just saying this is what we found out. We're not. It's like someone all this race realism stuff. Oh, the IQ of this group is higher and the IQ of that group is lower. That might be a fact, but it's also totally useless, because when you meet any individual from any of the groups, you know nothing about them.
Yeah.
And so it's only offensive when you start saying, this group of people have a lower IQ, therefore we should stick them in a concentration camp. Because you're then deriving something from the data, not the data itself.
I still wouldn't call that offensive, though. I would call it a problem, but I wouldn't call it offensive.
No, but somebody could be offended by it. That's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, but that's the problem with offense. Someone can be offended by anything you do, say, or think.
Well, Jordan Peterson said it. Jordan Peterson said it in his interview with Kathy Newman. In order to think, he has to risk being offensive.
Yeah.
Yep. Yes.
This is also what Elisa says. Facts can be offensive, but all things can be offensive. This is true. So, is it useful to try and prevent being offensive? Or even
is it useful to self-censor?
Is it possible to prevent being offensive?
Well, no, because somebody's being offensive can be offensive to me.
No, I think, yes, it is possible to avoid being offensive when you talk into a context. So, like I said, politeness. Like I wouldn't bring up atheism in the church. I just wouldn't.
I'm
but
sorry.
you know, the context.
I'm going to go back on your example: politeness and context.
Yeah.
So I think I'm being polite when I open the door for a woman. I mean, we both are going in the same direction. So I open the door for her and let her go in first. Am I being polite or am I being offensive? You're laughing because you know where I'm going with this one.
If you're offensive, if somebody is offended by being helped, then I can't help them. I don't know. There's nothing. I mean, are you pulling down your pants and showing an erection while you open the door, or is it?
People are offended. Sorry, Carl.
No, go on. You first. Go on, man.
No, I was just going to say that's the trouble, because people are getting offended at things that are facts.
Yeah, and I was just going to add, there is nothing that you can't be offensive. Nothing. You are offensive in everything you do. Basically, being alive can be offensive.
But no, here's the
Someone-
thing about context, right? I mean,
No,
you go into a really good restaurant and it's not China, and then you belch and fart.
but no,
Open your mouth and let those belches,
Exactly,
let them out. Or do you not do that? Do you kind of close your mouth? So there is contexts where you know.
yes, but
Right.
that's singular
And
context. But I
of
mean,
course, you cannot avoid 100%. You know, there's always some mentally weak people, some
many
idiots.
cultures, you have to what you just described. You have to burp to show satisfaction.
Yeah, I said not China.
Exactly. No, not China.
But really, oh, sorry.
In many other cultures outside of China,
Yeah, and you learn that. You go into these cultures, and then people may give you a dirty look, and then what did I do wrong? You know, so you will learn this. You will go into a culture, you learn this, and you will adapt. Unless
and if you bring that culture if you're a white guy, and if you bring that culture to your country, you will be accused of cultural appropriation, which is fucking bullshit. So, yeah.
Well, bring that culture on your own. I mean, that's the question. If you bring a culture, you might bring expectations. Let's say a tea ceremony, you know, and you have a certain way of like serving the tea and making it whatever.
Yeah.
And then there's the faux pas, you know, or how to open wine, red wine, that you shouldn't put your red wine into the fridge. You know, that it should be roomed, you know.
Depends on the wine. Depends on the wine again. But
the
tea was the Portuguese that introduced tea to the world.
Mm-hmm.
And we're not complaining you guys appropriated it.
Mm-hmm.
But really, Raven, I have one question to you. Because it seemed to me very difficult. One thing. It's when you, for example, said, okay, going to church and starting to talk about atheism, offensive. But then
it may be. Maybe you can say, I don't believe in God.
In a way, it sounds, although not exactly, but for a moment, it also sounds to me now. This is now what you try to do, define what's offensive, but you can define that only for yourself. And then, okay, I find this insulting, I find this offensive, therefore, I'm not going to do that. But then I will have different things which I choose not to do because I find it's rude and I try not to be rude to people. So it's very, it's still with the context. Still, it's often very difficult to know because, for example, a lot of my friends find offensive that when we used to, for example, when we went to the nicer restaurant, if I had a day when I just wanted to had a jumper on me, just a blouse, because that was in a mood I was in, I was doing that, and people would find that offensive. When I'm like, it's just a clothes. What the hell? Yeah. So but the context of the restaurant and the situation then should, say dress nicer.
Yeah, well, it reminds me, like in England, they had these no jeans nights as well. For some, even in pubs, where you can't go in with the jeans. It's really weird, but it's really something you learn. And I think that it's not so much, you don't decide that on your own, but I think what you involve is some empathy with the other people, the group that you kind of intrude into, or the group that you join. So if you go to this, you go to the Star Wars convention, and then you say, oh, Star Wars is shit. Star Trek is brilliant, So you kind of try to work within the group, and I think the big problem that we have is that we had all these cohesions, these different groups, the gun club, the tradition club, the tea circle, whatever, and that's gone now. Now you have the internet, and all these different circles that suddenly come together and talk to each other, and suddenly that context is gone. Everybody's just on their own. They just assume things. They're in this circle, and they're the gun lovers, NRA or whatever, and they think it's really offensive when somebody else says, "Well, guns are shit." People get killed, and we should take all the guns away.
But I think I agree with that on Mod, what he said, that, you know, people who get offended and find things offensive very often act out of their own entitlement. Because look, the truth is also, and I think it's not true only for me, but it's true for a lot of people. Like, look, the more respectful and empathic with me you will be, the more I'm actually willing to try not to say things if I know they offensive to you. But the more you try to restrict me from saying those things, the more I will be like, no, fuck it, I'm going to say it.
I disagree. I disagree on the personal entitlement, because a lot of the offenses that are taken are actually not taken on a personal level, but they are actually taken on a hyper personal level, where you feel you are member of a group. And you don't feel just on your behalf that it's offensive, but on behalf of the group. So you say,
but your
it's very offensive to me as a white person, as a person of color, whatever, as a man, you know. Or it's really offensive to me as a man that you say men only fart and burp all the time and they have no manners, you know, and they stink, you know. So I don't say that, oh, it's offensive to me, Real Raven, Axel. You said that I stink. Yeah, I say it on behalf of the group, the men.
Yeah, but
right?
should you be offended on behalf of the whole group? And that's the thing.
It's not a matter of should. I'm just explaining that the motivation of offense often is not personal. It's
I still see it as entitlement.
Internalize the context. Yeah, but it's not an entitlement. An entitlement is there because you think you can speak for the group. You've internalized the group. So
no, but it's also
I'm a Dutch woman, so I can speak for all Dutch women. You know?
Not only that. Not only that, for example, I'm going to tell you that, you know, I think, for example, I'm not being serious now, but example, that I'm going to be, it's rude because, for example, for me and, you know, the NRA members or something, but I'm still putting, you know, me and my group and fuck everyone else sort of way. Yeah. So it is entitled, and I found it more as shielding myself with a group, as not really caring for a group in many cases, but saying you care for a group just to have that one extra argument to make, you know, the point come across, you know, that make yourself really right, you know, that I'm really right, and look at me. It's not only me, look at the people behind me, look at my group sort of thing. And again, another entitlement, like me and my group. And so I still see it more as an entitlement thing.
I understand that you're I think that if you're a true individualist, right, then you wouldn't have these taboos and these boundaries. So you'll be a lot more open towards concepts and not being offended. But I don't think that anybody is completely free of a group of some sort of a group identity. So, like for me personally, for instance, I'm an MRA, I'm a men's human rights activist, and there is certain triggers, there's certain buttons that you can press. You know, there's certain things like you can say, okay, about deadbeat dads or something like that, that I will find offensive. There's nobody who is 100% free from that. You know. Yeah, but I mean, okay, you can attack me personally. That's easy, you know. If you say, Axel, you're an idiot, okay, that's clear cut. You know, nobody wants to be attacked personally. But I think that even without that, stripping that away, I think all of us have some sort of group affiliation, some sort of empathy, some sort of things, you know, that we like maybe our families, you know. That would be a very small circle, you know. And oh well, all the Modwains, they're all idiots, you know. They breed rabbits, or whatever, you know. I don't know. I can't think of something offensive, but you know what I mean, you know.
But
you will have this.
They were not true Vikings, the Modwains.
No, but the thing is, and we are beating around the bush in a way, but people who take offense, not are offended, but people who take offense do so out of entitlement, because they feel they have the right to tell you what you are allowed to say, what you are allowed to think, what you are allowed to do. This is the ultimate form of entitlement.
And it's
now,
also political.
Not
the right I wanted to hear what John said. John, what did you say?
Yeah, and it's no, but it's partly entitlement, but it's also political because it's a weapon.
Well, yeah, that's true.
But it's not the right to tell. Sorry, I mean, people sometimes they say don't say this, but oftentimes they just say, "Oh, this is really offensive, and you're hurting a lot of people with this," and that's all they say. They don't even say,
But
"Don't
this-
say this."
But this is a form of censorship. This is
No,
basically
it's not.
No,
They just
as soon as
they
you
just
say
No.
this is hurting a lot of people, yeah, you don't
No,
have to say
that's not a
"Don't
censorship.
say
That's
it."
no,
Yeah,
see,
it
that's
is.
no, that's not a censorship. That is just okay. I'm giving you the consequence. You've said something, and here's the consequence. A lot of people
No,
are
it's
a
a
lot of people
form
are
of
hurt or annoyed.
censorship.
It's not.
Well,
It's only
because
it-
I want you to stop doing this because it's offensive to people. And
No, but
the underlying message is very clear because
No.
as humans, we
No.
don't want to be.
you reflected it back now. You reflected it back. You
No,
just
no.
reflected it back. You did. Sorry.
This
Let me
is
just.
standard social behavior.
No, let me
People
explain it.
do not want to be offensive. So
Yeah.
as soon as you say something and people will say, "Oh, you're not supposed to say that because that can be
No.
considered
No.
offensive,"
You always.
people
You always
are hard pressed to keep saying those things because they don't want to be offensive.
Yeah, but
Hence,
okay.
it is censorship.
Yeah, but let me just roll it back because you always tie both in the. You don't say this because people get hurt, so you're not allowed to say this. You tie this together. But if I only say, "Oh, people are very offended by this," right? That is not an appeal to not say it. It's just I am laying out. There's hurt. You've just caused hurt. It's
It is.
completely. Let me
No,
finish. It's completely.
it is.
I say you have hurt people by what you said. Full
Yeah,
stop.
which-
Live with
which-
it. Okay.
which
So now what do you say?
Pronunciation. As soon as you say you've hurt people with saying this,
Yeah.
you are basically pushing someone either on the defense or on the offense. But you're not.
Yeah, that's fine. But you're not
No,
not
that's
telling
not
them
fine.
to stop.
No, you are. Because as soon as you push someone onto either defense or offense, you are demanding that they take action.
No, you're not.
Yeah, you are.
That's
Yeah, you
that's
are.
what you. No, you're not. You say, "Hey, somebody got hurt. Now deal with it." And the thing is, the other side can then say, "Okay, I will stop. I don't want to hurt," or they can say, "I don't care." That's
It's a
not.
very strong personality to
Yeah.
say, "I don't care." Now,
Yeah.
personally, I would say everyone should say, "I don't
don't
give a
care."
fuck." Yeah?
Yeah.
Simple as that.
Yeah.
But it takes
Exactly.
a strong personality. This is why PC culture is so dangerous and so, well, strong in a way. This is why so many people are behind the PC culture. Because
Well-
humans are sheep. We are herd animals. And we want to belong to the herd. So
Yeah.
offending
But here's-
anyone
Okay, so what's
rubs
your
us the wrong way.
What's your what would be your advice if this if I employ this tactic of saying, "Oh, Modwain, what you just said hurts me." What do you reply to that?
Well, I'm a rather strong human being, so I say, so what?
Okay, so you say you don't care. Okay,
I don't care.
That's one. That's one way to. That is one way to answer to this. There's also another way. Do you know what that is?
Then please enlighten me.
It's prove it.
No,
Prove
but
it.
that's
Because-
because you can't
because-
prove an offense. You cannot prove.
Exactly. You say.
No,
you
there
say,
is no exactly.
they say something. They say 100 million people just cried out in pain because you said it, and I say prove it because it's you personally. You said that. Give me the other 99 million. You know,
Well,
you said you just were talking on behalf of other people. You were talking from the context. You made up a context and imposed it on me. And you can actually attack that and say the context isn't there. You don't talk for a group, a big amount of people. You talk for yourself.
Yeah, but
So
people
then you can say,
people who use
I do
tactics-
care. I do care for the other people you talk for, but you don't talk for them. You talk only for yourself.
But that's the thing, though. People who talk like that, people who take offensive on behalf of other people, they don't care about your argument. As soon
they're
as
delusional.
as soon as they label you offensive, that's it. That's done.
Yeah,
This
but,
is- this is
what I'm saying is that they think they won the argument by saying something was offensive by imposing context. And what you can say is, well, I doubt your context. You cannot prove the context. That's the problem. That they say, oh, but everybody nowadays thinks Trump is an idiot. So you have to say Trump is an idiot. If you say Trump is intelligent or whatever, then this is offensive. You know, and they say, well, that is a context that might be okay for your, for all your liberals in New York or whatever. But it's not true for the whole world. You know, because that guy was actually voted in as a president. So you're actually in the minority with this context, you know, so you can attack that if you want. You can say, speak for yourself.
This is why political correctness has been reigning amok around the Western world. Because people are herd animals. They don't want to be offensive. So as soon as enough people will push the narrative of what you're saying is offensive or it's wrong, or they will even go as far as facts don't matter. And there is very little you can do because the majority of the narrative will be don't be offensive. And
but it's interesting
therein lies the main problem, because there is no way for you to not be offensive if someone wants to take offense.
One thing
per person, yes.
Sorry, because I have one problem with what you said. You can also reply to, okay, prove it. Let's say I'm now saying that, you know, in America, yeah, there is more crime going on within the black community than within the white community. And now you can say to me, you know, just the group of people, the whole room of people who are black, yeah, they're just got really offensive. Now, I can say I don't care. I can go with your answer, prove it. And let's say you will prove me that people one by one say, I'm offended, I'm hurt by you. But what will it bring? Because still, I'm really sorry, this is the truth. So just because if you prove me, and if they also stand, 20 people as one, say, yeah, our feeling got hurt, yeah, then what I'm supposed to do with that? Because, well, I'm not supposed to then state the fact that is actually there in the numbers. And I'm not saying that you in the room are carrying a weapon and assaulting people, but I only said that within a black community there is more crime than within a white community, and then to me it's useless sort of to go to prove it, because once you prove that to me, and let's say you actually prove that to me, okay, but so fucking what? I'm going to say that because this is the truth.
I think that particular example, it's an interesting one. I mean, we've seen JF and Worski talking on this, the whole race realism debate. It would actually be, and it is productive and helpful if the other side engages with that argument, and if people, there are people who say who will not outright deny that, but they will say they will try to find reasons for it. Let's say, okay, maybe the IQ is caused by environmental factors, maybe because the schools are bad, the structural, so, and that's a good thing, because you start to actually debate the fact, rather than just shut down.
Raven, the problem is, because in a way I get what you say, because I think you're coming also from the point, although it doesn't always come across to me that you mean that, but I think you mean that don't aim to be offensive. But it's very difficult not to aim to be offensive when basically people are shutting your mouth with things like, you are offensive, you hurt my feelings, you are racist, you are Islamophobe, really hurting me, when you simply state the fact.
No,
and therefore, this is like I said to one of my friends, I don't care about your feelings in a discussion, just as much I don't care about my feelings in a discussion, because I realize my feelings are only my feelings, and they are, little to do with reality sometimes.
Okay, let me just throw this out to you, that if you make a comment to something, right? Let's take our universe, let's say YouTube, our little YouTube universe. If you make a comment on a Steve Shives section, comment section, and on a atheism is unstoppable section, or on a Gad Sad section, there'll be 3 different ways of expressing the same thing. You will be mindful, because you know that if you say it in a certain way and right out the gate, carry your say, okay, I think it's all bullshit what you're discussing here. There is no wage gap, for instance. Then you will get nowhere. It doesn't help.
But that's diplomacy.
It's exactly.
That's
So
being diplomatic, but it's different in between being diplomatic and being political correct to me, and we lost that. There is a difference, and I know that from some old politicians, for example, in Poland, which names I'm not going to even say, but they sometimes, and I've met people in my life also, just regular people, they hated political correctness. They were nowhere political correct, never, but they were diplomatic because they had respect and they assume, okay, maybe you have really something to say that will make my mind up, that will change my mind. I'm willing to listen to you. So with that, they didn't come to the discussion, for example, to destroy the opponent to win or something. Yeah. They really wanted to actually find the truth. So they really listened to you. And I knew people who they would say facts and they didn't give a shit if that was offensive. They didn't give a shit if you would cry. At the same time, those people were polite. They were diplomatic, but they would still call facts as they were, call things for what they were. And I think we lost that difference right now.
Yeah, I think that's ideal. I mean, if you can be polite and if you can be rational at the same time, that's the perfect balance. You're polite and you're rational. You don't necessarily you don't exaggerate, and you work with facts, and you try to understand the other side. I think that's a really great standpoint or a starting point for a discussion. And you can still meet the asshole who'll prod and poke and say, yeah, but you're right wing, so I'm not talking to you because you're a Nazi or something. Look, then those people you can't talk to. There is one also thing you say, for example, if I go to comment something on Gatsat, okay, I might have an idea who Gatsat is, watching his video, who is not personal but have some sort of idea, because you watch for a certain things. But it's not only him, it's his followers as a context, and those people I don't know. So I actually have no freaking idea what will offend them, because I don't know who listens to him.
I know what offends Gatsat.
You start with something very mild, and you go into. It's like when you go into a group for the first time, into a clique. You don't necessarily come out with the most colorful statement. You kind of feel around first, So I think you do regulate. Everybody regulates their speech according to the group they're in. And the big problem is that in the internet, that's all gone, because especially Twitter, everybody sees what everybody writes. So that's impossible.
Axel, may I come back on what you just said?
Anyway, sure. Guys, before you go, I have to go, guys. Tomorrow I got to work.
Carlos, thank you for coming, mate.
If you want to offend Gatsat and most of his followers, tell him and them that Ronaldo is better than Messi and Real Madrid is better than that will offend them. You will be blocked by Gatsat, guaranteed. You can call him any other name, but if you say about anything about Barcelona, you are absolutely booted out of his life. So, good night, guys.
Good night.
But
we'll wait for the World Cup.
Axel, do you remember what you said a moment ago?
Of course.
Basically, you said that people would try to adjust their conversation skills and adjust what they are saying in ways not to try to offend the people that are listening.
When they start to go into a group, and then once they're accepted there, then they will expand that, and they will start to take liberties and introduce. That you don't fall into the door, into the house with the door.
Axel,
break it down.
That means that you self-censor.
Yeah, it's politeness. Politeness and conversation is
politeness and self-censorship are not really the same. But if you are afraid if you are afraid to say certain things because it might be considered offensive, you are self-censoring.
Yes, and everybody does this. Everybody does. You go to a supermarket and you tell the woman at the cashier, "Hey, bitch, hurry up! I need to go." No, you don't. Oh, there's a big queue there. You just say, "Come on, it's really slow here." in society you do this all the time. If you didn't do it, it would be complete chaos.
I'm sorry to see that you are going from one extreme to the other, and I don't.
No,
understand
I'm just
why.
saying there is regulation. I'm not saying extreme. You are the one who always uses the word censorship, and to me, it's a bit of a red herring because yes, you regulate the speech,
but at a certain point in time, of course, you're not going to use words that you know are offensive. So of course, you're not going to call a human a bitch, because why would you call a human a female dog?
Yeah.
But it's not about words that you know that can be used to offend people.
Yeah.
It's things that may be considered offensive by some. So you're going to say So you're going to say, oh, you have a beautiful daughter. And someone can already see that as offensive.
Yeah.
Or what are you going to give your mother for Mother's Day? There are schools that want to ban Mother's Day because it's offensive to some. This is how far it goes.
Okay.
So if we're going to
take your example, you go to the Japanese king and tell him that his daughter is beautiful. Would you do that?
Yeah, sure. If I think she is.
Mean, would you do it to anybody? The thing is there a person where you wouldn't dare to say the daughter is beautiful?
No.
It's just an example. Okay, so maybe that's a bad example, but there is.
No, it's a very good example, because the reason why you're not supposed to say stuff like this anymore is because how dare you assume her gender?
Okay, well, that's one thing. I thought it was just more.
But this bullshit is happening. So once people start knowing this, they are talking about how you're not supposed to call women anymore. Mothers who are birthing are not mothers anymore. They are parent figures or parental units. This is what political correctness brings us.
Yeah, I think political correctness is not even, it's not just offense that it's based on. Offense is just a weapon to bludgeon it, but political correctness is even worse.
Yeah, this is the problem, because it's using offense to get away with things that normal people would normally not allow to happen, but they are allowing it to happen now because they are part of and humans are herd animals. So if a majority of a herd is going into the political if humans are going into the political correctness, humans feel forced to follow other humans in it. Yeah. Because if they don't, they feel excluded from the group.
Yeah. Well, I can only say that you're taking very extreme examples, and I'm taking maybe milder ones, So I think that there is a gradient, there is a kind of a slope.
The difference is that you're talking about actual swearing words, and I'm talking about actual stuff.
Well, if I say God is dead, it's not a swear. If I say God is dead or God doesn't exist,
most Christians wouldn't give a fuck if you think God is dead.
Yeah. Well, you might give a fuck if you say it in the middle of service, right?
Raven, there's one thing, because maybe I'm misunderstanding, but you say, okay, to Maud, you take extreme examples and I take more mild ones because there is a gradient, yeah? And I'm not sure if I understand. But in a way, there isn't, because look, it's like I remember the times in Poland, when basically not being offensive to Muslims meant don't call them goat fuckers and don't deny them employment, and that was like freaking basics, right? No one was doing that anyway, except for the people who will do that no matter what, because they're idiots, right? And from that little mild, little thing that was fucking basic anyway, it became to the moment when we cannot speak the truth. From something that was very reasonable. Therefore, to me, it's difficult to talk about the gradient in political correctness, because it always leads to extreme. It always leads to division of society to the core, really to the core, and it always end up being a really big thing, to the point, and this is, I believe I gave that example once in the stream, but I give you one example. There was a movie when I watched by accident, saw a scene, and I don't even know the movie what was about, but it was in Russia under Stalin, when the old woman was bringing a tea to a table and she spilled the tea, and it went on the photo of Stalin, and she started to nearly cry and shake. And my mother had to explain me, because I was like, okay, what's going on? Well, she spilled the tea. Well, what's the big deal? She's adult, no one is yelling for an adult for doing that. Yeah, but she could go to jail. No, why? Because it's offense to Stalin, they could say, and someone who don't like it. And I couldn't understand it back then, because I was freaking, I don't know, 4 or 5. So yeah, okay, but she could say, I don't mind it as an offense. And then it would be clear. And my mother started to try to explain me, not, of course, don't make it too terrible for my age, that it wouldn't matter. And this is exactly what's happening. Look at the people who were named, called out for doing something offensive, which they didn't. Then they apologize, and it's not enough.
Can I answer to that? I think, see, I'm not saying that it's not getting very extreme and that it's not getting worse and that this is not bad. All I'm saying is that the stance that Modwain is taking seems to suggest that every regulation of speech is bad, is censorship, and I think that's a step too far for my taste.
That's what I wanted to explain you with the, for example, from Poland, don't name Muslim goat fuckers, and that was really but that was fucking basic, and that would be like regulation, but what, 0.5% of the people.
Okay, fine. So you call this stuff basic, but I think that is actually the difficulty, that these basic ones, these basic rules, it's actually very difficult to come up with the right pool of basic rules, of this and this and this. This is actually the goat fuckers. The things, the one thing that, Mohammed consummated his marriage with Aisha, which was who was 9 years old. So on our modern terms, he's a pedophile.
Yeah.
Full stop. So this is a fact, right? I just stated a fact. So the question is this something we should not say?
No, we should say
present,
one moment, because Mod really want to address that, but I want to say one thing. No speech regulation. Here is the thing. As soon as you physical attack me, we have a problem. You can say to me whatever the hell you want, because it's just words. Why? Because maybe you will hurt my feelings and maybe you will be asshole, and the consequences of that are not nicer. But always in the history, basically to police the speech, to restrict the speech, even to a small degree, the consequences of that are far worse, because it always escalates. But I'm sorry, because Modwain wanted to say something.
You have that at work, though. You have speech codes at work. So are you against them?
Yes.
Yes.
So if a company says you cannot say anything bad about the company because it would be bad for our PR or whatever, we could lose customers. If you say, well, I work for Microsoft, but really Windows 7 is a piece of shit, if you say something like that.
Real Raven, do you know what a whistleblower is?
Yep.
Is a whistleblower a good thing or a bad thing?
Is a whistleblower a good thing or a bad thing?
Yes.
Depends, I think. I think that if you whistleblow, if your whistleblowing actions would. I just saw Die Hard 2, and they showed this guy. He was a reporter. He was on the plane that, and they didn't know, but all the ground control was under terrorist control, and what he did is he listened in on a forbidden channel and he broadcasted it, and so it was brought live on the news. So he broadcasted the fact that they knew.
Was that a good thing or a bad thing?
It was, in that point, it was a really bad thing because the terrorists could counteract, and it actually almost caused death. So in that case, the whistleblowing was actually a bad thing. And that's why I cannot unreservedly say to you, Modwain,
that's okay. It's the same thing. It's the same thing when asking people, should you be against abortion? Well, if women are raped, therefore abortion is good, even though it's less than 1%. Of all abortions. You come down with an example which is from a movie, so there is that. But no, if we look at real whistleblowers, We have seen real whistleblowers.
Modwain, Modwain, it's from a movie, but how many whistleblowers do you know personally?
I have never met anyone personally.
Exactly. So
I only know the stories.
You know,
Do you know any whistleblowers personally?
no, of course not. That's why I'm taking an
but you do know the
example.
stories. But you do know the stories, I assume.
Yeah, of course. What's his name? The French guy.
If whistleblowers are a good thing, this is the assumption I'm moving from for a second.
Let's say that, yeah.
If whistleblowers are a good thing, does that then not basically prove that speech regulations are a bad thing? Because whistleblowers break speech regulations.
No, I don't think you can just generalize. You cannot just say whistleblowers are good, therefore, and they break speech regulations, so speech regulations are bad. This is a very, very dumbed down view of things. I'm sorry.
Is it? So if you work at a company and you're obligated to tell certain untruths.
No, you omit certain truths. Usually it's more about not allowing,
Omitting the truth is a lie, no matter how you put it.
Yes, but
therefore, if you're forced to speak untruth, if you're basically
look. Look, if you sell an operating system and you tell your customer support, don't tell you sell Windows, don't tell them about Linux. So you think that's bad?
Wait. Now you're doing two different things.
That's not a lie, it's just you're not advertising the competitor's product.
But
sorry.
Now you're bringing another basically exaggerated example.
No, it's just
yes, you are. Are you free to? If you work at Microsoft, are you free to talk about Linux? Yes.
Yeah.
If you're trying to sell your product, will you also try to sell Linux? No, obviously not, because you're trying to sell Microsoft.
Yeah, it's an example.
But you're allowed to speak.
But you're lying. You're lying. There's other operating systems.
You're allowed to speak about Linux. If you're not,
but not when you're talking to customers.
If you're not allowed to talk about Linux, even towards customers, then yes, you are being censored.
Yes, exactly.
Which is a problem.
It is a problem.
Thank you.
I agree that it is a problem, but I disagree when you say it's generally bad and should always be avoided. That's something.
Because it is generally bad and it should always be avoided.
Yeah, and should it's so bad and should generally be avoided. So should there be legislation against it?
No, because then you're legislating speech again. The whole thing about that is that.
So here's the thing. So
the
there's
whole Raven, please let me finish my sentence. The whole thing about legislating speech is that it can be used against you.
Yeah.
This is the whole problem with the gender identity bullshit that Jordan Peterson got caught in, but it is the major drive of political correctness. By trying to censor people and by trying to litigate what you are and are not allowed to say.
Right. And they're using offense as a weapon to it. It's not necessarily following from offense. It's just a tool. It's like, offensive is the hammer in their toolbox, So I'd say political correctness is something, yes, you can derive it from offense, but it's not necessarily the only outcome. One outcome of offense could be that people are just polite to each other and that they just omit certain things, that they don't put fingers on wounds, stuff like that, Obviously, it gets very tricky when you go into things like legislations, welfare payments, stuff like, that matters.
It doesn't get tricky, it gets downright a problem.
Yeah.
Because as soon as you regulate what people are allowed to say, think, and do, you are censoring them.
Yeah, but like I said to you before, you regulate is such a wide thing. Regulation happens automatically when just two people meet. That they regulate already automatically internally. They know what the other person likes to hear, and they know what pushes their buttons. Even just you and your wife, you and your girlfriend. I bet there are words that she doesn't like you to use, and yes, you can use them, but you might probably annoy there. So you have these regulations. So I think that the problem is when the law gets involved. That's when it gets problematic. When you create these, when you write it down, that's when it gets problematic.
But that's what I'm saying. So you shouldn't have any rules regulating speech.
Any written rules? See, I narrow it down. I think there will always be
you are narrowing it
rules.
down, but that doesn't change what I said. You can change it. I'm saying you should have none.
And I think that's. I'm sorry, but I think that isn't. You're not in reality land. Yes, you. Okay, you say
maybe
you should.
I am. Maybe you're not.
No, but you are in an ideal world. But would you at least concede that you will regulate your speech when you're with certain persons, and out of your own free will? That you, let's say, with your mother, when you're with your mother, you do not use certain words.
No.
Will you give me that?
No, because
I'm sorry.
Okay, your grandmother.
Unfortunately, she's no longer with us. But
Okay.
No,
you talk to everybody exactly the same way. Everybody doesn't matter. You use exactly the same words.
Yes.
You don't have you got children?
Yes.
Okay, so you would also I don't know. I mean, you would also, let's say, use the word blowjob or I don't know, the sexual language in front of your children. I'm sure we can keep going. At some stage, I will hopefully get you to the point where you admit that with certain people you will regulate your speech in a certain way. When you go
my wife
to the
is
post
sitting
office,
next to me.
when you go to
My wife is sitting next to me. I will let her answer that one for you.
Yeah, go on.
Okay, to be honest, look, on the kid thing and the sexual thing, I hope he will regulate himself a little bit, but I don't know if he will. As talking, if we talk about people, the way he talks to people in general, either it's his mother, someone young, someone old, whatever, I can truly say he talks the same way. It's sort of take it or leave it. And I think the trick is that he tries to be polite to his standards, like I'm trying to be polite to my standards. And this has to do for everyone. And from the people I meet in my life and he meets in my life, there will be a tremendous amount of people who will tell us, oh, you are assholes. And there will be a group of people who will stay because they will not mind, they will understand. And those are the people we can feel indeed we are, we are ourselves and it doesn't offend them because they stayed with us. So, for example, you see, because I argued once that I argued once with my friend that if I would have a homeless person, because it started with that tradition on 24th of December in Poland that you set an extra plate for a guest who might unexpected unexpected guest, yeah. But I argue with someone that if I have a homeless person and I have a king of this country in my house, they both will be treated with respect, the same respect, because, and this is the thing, I'm not going to, certain words I don't use maybe to people to call them, but I use in front of them, like fuck or some Polish swear words. Here is the thing, I will treat the king just as much as I will treat the homeless person, because they're both just humans. So here is the thing, no matter who is in my living room, if I'm annoyed and I want to say, oh, for fuck's sake, I'm going to say for fuck's sake.
That's your living room. Now imagine, I don't know, I mean, you have moved from a different culture, right? So
not that much different culture.
So you know Eastern European cultures versus
but
Netherlands, right? Now, for me as a German, for me it was no problem, and I still know it's no problem for me to admit that I'm an atheist here in Catholic Ireland. But I catch myself as well when I talk to natives here that I use phrases like "please to God." I know you may call me. Modwain will tear me down, and you also and say you're such a hypocrite. You don't believe in God, and yet you use a phrase like "please to God." That's a regulation where I censor myself or make myself say something that I shouldn't say because I don't believe in it. So I'm actually.
I wouldn't care about that. I do say "God damn it" too, and I say in German you would say "Grüß Gott." Yes,
well,
like that
but
too.
you say God damn it to anybody.
That doesn't make me a believer. I'm an atheist. But if someone uses words like that,
it's not the same.
It's
not the same. No, Modwain, it's not the same. It's not the same. Sorry, because I don't use "please to God" to anybody else, but to the Catholics when I talk to them, because I adapt to their manner of speaking. So I talk differently to people in a very alien, different culture in order to assimilate. Yeah. So and I don't feel this. I don't feel oppressed or censored or anything by this. I don't really feel much by it.
I think the difference is you say something, but we're talking about not saying something. And this is the difference. And this is also why I argued, because I argued with someone also some time ago that we should be restricted to say certain things because, people are very polite and certain people cannot really never imagine to. Okay, different. A friend of mine told me once that they think there should be a regulation of manners, how you behave and what you say, what you cannot say to a certain degree, because for example the friends of their parents, very educated, very polite people, they couldn't imagine themselves saying certain things. And this is my argument. You might not imagine yourself saying certain things. I'm going to still say them. And here is the thing. Either we stick with each other and become friends or whatever, and it's on certain levels. For example, maybe you don't mind when I do it. Maybe you do mind. Maybe you have something to offer for me. Like you really are interesting person. I really love our conversation. So you have that much for me to offer that I want to behave better than I usually do. And maybe you really like me. And then you can basically, also just pretend you don't hear the very fewer times, but still a few times when I say, oh, fuck that, right? But it should be on the basis of I want to, because never ever on the basis I have to. And that's the thing, because I agree with you that we often, no, you know what, here is the thing. Till where we go, because we can argue, of course Mod regulates himself because he walks in and he says good afternoon and good morning, and that's regulation itself, because that's what we do when we go to the people full of room visiting someone's house. We will regulate ourselves, and so does he, and say good afternoon or hello or whatever. So
how are you?
So to some degree, but when it comes to basically how he speaks, if he uses swear words, he will, if he wants to use a swear word. God, I'm sure if the king would be there here, he would also use the swear word if he wants to. He wouldn't say to the king, you were fucking dickhead, probably, but when he wants to say, oh, fuck that, he will say, fuck that. And I think me too. So that's because we can go very, very, really, really far away with the regulation. You know what I mean? Yeah. So, but he talks the same.
I think free will is. I think free will is a super good argument, and I think free will should be involved, and I think that free will is involved in a lot of times when you are in small circles. Let's say you're with your clique, with your friends. Let's say you're with your family, whatever. There is this free will. There's this thing, you do it naturally. You will regulate your speech. You will maybe not broach certain subjects because it rubs a person the wrong way.
No, not this way. No, I'm sorry. If I want to start certain subjects or say something, maybe people say I'm not going to continue. Fair enough, I cannot force people to continue, but I'm not going to say, oh no, it's going to be triggering for you, so I'm not going to talk about that, because this is exactly the wrong. Because this is exactly the wrong thing. Because I can know about one thing that is going to trigger you, Raven.
You can't know everything.
But yes, and therefore when I go, okay, this triggers, let's say, I know we sit with a beer, this triggers Raven, I'm not going to talk about it. If I go down that road, I don't know you completely, and there may be 10 other things I don't know about that might trigger you.
Yeah, so you'd say the 10 other things.
It's no, it's up to, when I say thing and you really don't want to talk about it, it's not my responsibility to censor myself. It's your responsibility to tell me, look, Sam, I don't want to talk about it right now.
Yeah, well, that's perfectly fine, and that's perfectly fine. I think that's reasonable. I think. So yeah, obviously you cannot be preemptively afraid to say something. That's no good. But I'm sure that happened to you, and maybe it even might have happened to Modwain. It certainly happened to me. The term, "Oh, I really stepped in it."
I think.
And did that happen to you? Did you ever step into it? In Germany we call it das Fettnäpfchen. Ins Fettnäpfchen treten. It's I don't know. It's the bowl of fat, and you stepped into it. It's just when you said something completely off color, and you didn't even realize it. Then it was just in the context. It was just really bad. And oh my God, I can't believe I said that.
No.
And then you make that mistake once, and you get this reception, and then you won't make it again out of your free will.
Look, but is it something then offensive?
Let's say you make a desk joke. You make a desk joke about suicide, and the person across to you has just lost their sister. To suicide. It's a simple example, right?
Okay. Yes, and the thing is, and I am fully aware of how terrible will be right now and cruel of what I'm going to say. I'm fully aware. And at the same time, before I say it, I want to say the same goes for me and for things that might be triggering due to my past, my life, and whatever. Here is the thing. Had I known before that she lost just a sister to a suicide, would I make a joke? No, I'm not that of an asshole. I give you that.
See, now, so that's what one would say you censor yourself.
No, yes, but further, I made the joke and I didn't know. Do I feel like a complete asshole? And do I feel very terrible about myself? No, because I say, look, I rather didn't say it. I didn't know. I apologize for it. But at the same time, I giving me the credit that I didn't know, and I'm not going to censor myself. So it's not when I'm going to say something like that, it's not going to shatter my day because I didn't know.
Yeah, I understand that, but it's still like that, you can, you don't know beforehand, and you do something, you say something.
There is another thing that
the person is really hurt, so you have that effect, right?
Look, there is another. It doesn't matter that the person is hurt, because there is another thing that I might not say the suicide joke and 10 other people, but someone will on TV. It will be whatever it will be, and she needs to learn to deal with it.
Yeah, that's different. That's what I said about context. It's much easier to make that joke in a big group because you can't control it then. Because yes, there's always some asshole. There's always somebody offended by something. You cannot expect somebody to regulate their speech for 5,000 people or 500 or 100 people. But if you have a small group, let's say 3 or 4 people, then it gets a little bit easier. The problem is that people tend to think that there's only 3 or 4 people when they read something on the internet, and not hundreds of thousands.
Yeah, but the thing is you read the internet, but do you think there should be regulation on internet then?
No, absolutely not. Okay, because it's open for everybody, and you cannot regulate that.
Exactly.
Because it's impossible. Literally billions of people could read this, and I'm sure anything I can say can be offensive. So you need the context, and the context of the internet is free for all.
Yeah, and I'm going to tell you one thing, and this is interesting to me. Sometimes, and it's happened like last 2 or 3 years, I'm guessing, I really have a crap memory like that. But basically, it's something like when people hear me speaking Dutch, they obviously hear I'm not from here. And when we talk, and they, for example, will say like, yeah, we have a lot. For example, they will state this has never happened before, like last 2 or 3 years, right? I think they will say like, oh cool, so are you staying here? I said, yeah, I actually live here. And then they say something like, yeah, many Polish people are living here at the moment. And then they follow up without me reacting to it yet. Then they follow up with immediate apologize. I said, no, why do you apologize? That's true, because that might be offensive, because we are so fed up with that might be offensive. I said, yeah, you're right.
Hold on, what? Offensive to call you Polish, or
no, offensive that, you know, many Polish people are living like here because
that you're one of many.
Because maybe it's taken as a complaint of her, right, of him.
That's like so many jumps made. I mean, many people live here. Okay.
No, but people already are really
too many.
Like that.
If they say too many, that's different.
Yeah.
If they say too many, that's different.
But few times I went into conversation with different people, and most of them were like, you know, 50, 60, and many of them tell me like something along this line, that nowadays we are so politically correct not to insult people, and you cannot say anything.
But it's
in the old days it was better, because in the end people could say whatever the hell they want to, and less people were feeling offended. It's because we had more mentality, I think, you know, suck it up, buttercup. And now basically, you know, safe space and a bubble, and oh my God.
I mean, I think that's a good example with the many, but I think that, you know, if you come from a rational point of view, then I would say, well, how many? I'm interested. I'm 10,000, 100,000, 1 million. I'm just interested, you know, and then you can discuss on which number would then be offensive. Would 10 million be offensive? With 100,000, you know, where's the you know, many could be 50, maybe
but
50 Polish people.
Like that. They don't even mean it. Look, many is if you go in your country and you regulate
it's a rubber word.
Foreign language. But the thing is, they don't even mean it most of the times, or I don't get this as something offensive. I never ever took it as a complaint on their part.
Of course, yeah.
But they already already saying sorry, because we are so fed up with how things might be perceived.
Yeah, I don't know. It's weird. It's just because they make so many leaps in their brain, and I would just say, I don't understand. You know, I mean, yeah. Did you mean too many, or did you mean it? Because I get that a lot as well. You know, there's another German there up near your town. You must know him because he's German. No, I don't know this person. I have no idea. all Germans, you know, they're all kind of connected via Bluetooth. No, I have no idea who this person is. Sorry, you know, just because it's funny. You know, I just laugh. But
it's like years ago when I played World of Warcraft and people started talking to me. Oh, then you must know that and that guy because he plays World of Warcraft too. Yeah, there's only
exactly
people. Anyway, I am going to wrap this up because we have been going back and forth quite a while now.
It was amazing.
It was a good chat. It was a good stream.
Sorry for monopolizing the speech time.
I hope it was fun for everyone. I'm not really sure what my speech thingy will do next week. Yeah, I still miss World of Warcraft 2, Crusader. We had great times there, my friend. We really did.
Me too.
How about some good news? You know that Bearings channel is back, yeah?
Well, it's back. No one knows why it was gone, and now it's back. I'm not really sure if I would call this good news or news at all, or...
It's good news.
I'm happy for Bering. I love the guy. I mean,
I like his content.
But I like his stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
But at the same time, God knows how it can go next time. Come on, Square. You're just arriving. I mean, we're going to end it now. I'm sorry. Alicia, you could have joined in. Why didn't you join in, by the way? I am curious.
Yeah, Alicia would have been great.
Yeah, it would have been fun. More people. More problems.
I actually had a question for you, Modwain, because when we said about the big context, I know you can't regulate the internet, but countries, there's the thing, you know. So we have this thing with Tommy Robinson being arrested, and there's two schools of thought, you know. So there's regulation of speech because of the fear that it might influence a trial badly.
Okay, now I'm going to be quite simple on this because I've seen those arguments. I even had this argument with someone on Twitter. Tommy Robinson was arrested on the day that they were talking about sentencing. So basically the trial is over.
Yeah.
They have been convicted.
They were already convicted. All right.
We're only talking about sentencing. The second thing is he was standing outside of the court's domain. He even checked it with the police officers. This is on his live stream. You can see this. He's asking, am I allowed to stand here? They tell him, yes, you're allowed to stand there. He names the charged people when they come into the courtroom, when they walk past, he names them and asks them why they did what they did. These people are walking freely, by the way. They're not in jail awaiting their sentencing. No, they can come to the court. Yeah. Every name of these guys has already been in the newspaper in the area, so he didn't dox anyone. And yet still they are using the fact that he was too close to a court, which he was allowed, but he wasn't allowed on the court's domain. And they're using the argument that he released the names of the men that weren't convicted yet, but he didn't release them. So they were already out there. So they are abusing the situation, and a lot of people don't seem to understand what's actually going on.
So if they convicted him on a technicality, there's one more technicality that I saw in mine. I do not know whether it's true, but the judge actually saw him. The judge who convicted him actually saw him through the window. And if you are a witness to a crime, you cannot pass judgment as a judge on the
worst part is he didn't get judged on a crime. Basically, he had probation, and they used probation against him.
But they gave him 10 months extra for the crime of breaching that. So the 10 months at least. I know the 3 months he got, like if you, what is it called? You know, breaking the, what was it?
He had a probation. Yeah, he had a suspension sentence of
suspension, right? So 3 months he should have got, but he got 13. So he got 10 months extra.
Well, it's possible, but I don't understand why. Worst off, it's okay if the judge looked outside. But he wasn't on the Crown's domain, so he was allowed to be outside. But
it's just that, according to the rules, a judge, if he witnesses a misdemeanor crime, whatever you call that bullshit that they accused him of, if the judge witnesses it, he cannot pass judgment on it.
No, because he's a witness, and therefore he can't be impartial.
So technicalities, it looks very good for a retrial for Tommy, you know.
Well, that too, but I'm really not sure if it's smart to go into a retrial. I mean, there is a reason why a lot of people are starting to use UKSR.
I think it's smart. It would be smart on Tommy's behalf because it's just going to add more publicity to the case, you know, and how crazy the system is.
Maybe.
Anyway, guys, sorry.
Anyway, we are going to end this. So if anyone wants to say anything, shill yourself or whatnot, let's start with you because you haven't said that much already.
It's okay. I have no new content on my channel. So, but there is a new track we're working on, and it's gonna come out on Modwain's channel. So very soon.
Yes, I'm really looking forward till it's done, and I'm going to try to make a nice video for it. So, how far are you with it, by the way?
I think we're 90% there.
Cool. Well, I mean, it will obviously be on my channel. If you want to put it on your channel, of course.
Yeah, mirror it afterwards, you know. So I need content, obviously.
But you don't have to mirror it afterwards. We can release it on the.
I haven't done anything with Lana in ages. She was so busy, and she was offline for a month or so. So it's crazy.
Well, in that case, it's a good thing that I gave you something to work with.
Absolutely, man.
I got something else in mind as well, but that's for now.
Okay.
Anyway, so keep track on Real Raven's channel because there's something cool coming out soon. Anything else you wanted to shill, mate?
No, that's fine.
John, you want to shill something?
No. Never
John,
do.
you want to shill something?
Yeah, thanks people for the stream. Sorry for taking over at some parts, but yeah, it was fun.
Well, considering that we have said nearly everything that needed to be said, I want to thank everyone for coming. Rin and Carlos already left us, but I'm really grateful that they came. Thank you for joining us in the chat, Oopsie and Crusader and Alicia and Anon and Hi and
Crusader.
Yeah, that's what I said. Hi. I don't always say hi,
No,
Crusader. I just say
Soul.
hi.
You said hi.
Well, Crusader Soul and hi.
Okay. And Square Peg for her brief.
Square Peg, obviously. But yeah, I mean, she came back from the denture, and I haven't seen her. She should have been here sooner.
Yeah, she'd been a bit. She did a video saying she'd been away because the weather was too nice and she was enjoying it because she's in the north and they only have 3 months of nice weather and stuff like that.
I can understand that, though. I mean, if you want to enjoy yourself, you should. Anyway, this is us going out of the live stream.